What's the hardest choice a family member forced you to make? My grandmother was the most independent person I knew, which is why I had to sell the one thing she had left of my grandfather to save her. She lived in the same small house she'd shared with him for 50 years, a house filled with memories and a stubborn refusal to accept help. I'd stop by every few days to help with groceries and check her mail. That's how I found it. Tucked between a catalog and a letter from her church was a bright pink envelope. It wasn't a cheerful greeting, it was a final notice. A notice for a medical debt so large it made my stomach clench. She had 30 days before the bank would put a lien on her house. The house I grew up in. The only home she'd ever known. If I failed to do something, she would lose everything. Her home, her independence, her dignity. When I confronted her, gently placing the letter on her worn kitchen table, she became a fortress. "It's a mistake," she insisted, her voice brittle. "They're just trying to scare an old woman." She snatched the letter and tore it into tiny pieces, her hands shaking with a fury that was really just fear. I knew she was lying. I started noticing things. She was eating less. The heat was turned down so low I could see my breath. And at night, when she thought I was gone, I'd see her through the window, sitting at the dining room table under a single dim lamp. She'd have these thick, dusty albums open, carefully lifting tiny squares of paper with a pair of tweezers, her stamp collection. It was her and my grandfather's thing. They'd spent weekends driving to shows, trading with people across the country. Every stamp had a story. I thought she was just reliving memories. I didn't realize she was liquidating them. She was selling her past, one tiny piece at a time, to pay for a present. But it wasn't enough, not even close. One afternoon, hoping to help, I took a small handful of the stamps she'd set aside to an appraiser. I thought they might be worth a few $100s, enough to buy us some time. The appraiser, a man with glasses perched on his nose, looked at them and then looked at me. His eyes were wide. "Where did you get these?" he asked, his voice hushed. He explained that it wasn't just a few valuable stamps. It was a complete, pristine collection of a very rare series. It was a philatelist's dream. It was worth a fortune, enough to pay off the entire debt, the mortgage, and set her up for the rest of her life. It was the answer to all our problems, and it was the one thing I couldn't bring myself to take from her. 2 days before the deadline, the phone call came. A cold, impersonal voice from the collections agency informed me that the process would begin in 48 hours. There were no more extensions. That night, I went to her house. I had the official appraisal printed out. I sat down at the dining room table across from her, right where she always sat with her albums. I slid the paper across the table. "Graham," I said, my voice thick with an emotion I couldn't name. "This is it. It's the stamps, or the house." She looked at the number on the page and then at me. And she finally broke. It wasn't anger. It was a wave of pure, unadulterated grief. Her shoulders shook and she covered her face with her hands. She started talking about my grandfather, about the rainy Sunday they spent finding the first stamp in the collection at a flea market. She told me about the time he traded a whole book of lesser stamps for one perfect, rare one, and how he'd beamed with pride. The albums weren't just paper and ink. They were her marriage, her history, her last tangible connection to the love of her life. We sat there for hours, going through every page as she told me their stories. It was her way of saying goodbye. The house is safe now. The debt is gone. She kept one stamp, the very first one they ever bought together, for a nickel at that rainy flea market. It sits in a small, simple frame on her nightstand, right where the thick, dusty album used to be.